English step by step, past continuous, step 2. Remember, if you'd like to see more videos like this, please click like. If you'd like to see other videos in this step-by-step series, click subscribe. And if you'd like to request a topic for a lesson, you can put a comment in the comments list below. So in the last video, we looked at uses of the past continuous. So now we'll move on to look a little bit at the form of the past continuous. So with past continuous, we use the auxiliary verb to be, and then the present participle of the verb plus ing. So let's look at some examples. Example number 1 here. He was working in an office. So we can see the auxiliary verb past tense of to be was. And then we have the infinitive work plus ing to change it into the present participle. Example number 2 is a negative example. I wasn't feeling tired. Example number 3 is a question. Were they waiting for you inside? So, in order to make the auxiliary verb, we have to be familiar with the past tense of to be. So in the affirmative, we have I was, you were, he was, she was, we were, they were. So you can see it's quite easy to see the difference. So in the affirmative, we have I was, you were, he was, she was, we were, they were. So there are only 2 variations, was and were. In the negative, here we have the contraction with not as the negative, and was not, we make a contraction, I wasn't. So again, I wasn't, you weren't, he wasn't, she wasn't, we weren't, they weren't. Again, only 2 variations, wasn't and weren't. And then with the question, we make an inversion. I was, and then the question, was I? Where you were, and then the question, were you? So the inversions are with the variations was and were. Was I? Were you? Was he? Was she? Were we? And were they? So normally when we use the past continuous, we make the contraction with the negative. For example, I was not eating dinner, I wasn't. You were not, you weren't. He was not, he wasn't. She was not, she wasn't. We were not, we weren't. They were not, they weren't. So the negatives without contractions are used more often in informal English, in newspapers, in reports, in academic texts, etc. Negatives with contractions are more informal and used in everyday English. So now let's just look at some other points connected to form. In other words, connected to the present participle. So that means you have the infinitive, for example, work, and you change it to working. Wait, waiting. Think, thinking. Most verbs are like this. However, there is a spelling change when the infinitive ends in E, as in live, give, freeze, move. With these verbs, we drop the E, but of course there is no change in the pronunciation. Examples. They were living in London. They weren't moving very fast. Were you giving him some help? So, drop the E in these verbs. There is also a spelling change when the infinitive contains a short vowel followed by a consonant. For example, in verbs like club, swim, shop, cut, travel. You can see the short vowels here. A in club, I in swim, shop, O in shop, A in cut, E in the second part of travel. So all of these are short vowels. With these verbs, we double the consonant. For example, the party people were clubbing every night this week. Double B after A. I was at the beach, but I wasn't swimming. Double M after the short vowel E. Were you shopping much during your holiday? Double P after the short vowel O. Who was cutting the grass? Double T after the short vowel A. The tourists were travelling to many countries. Double L after the short vowel E. Now, one point to make about this last example, travelling. In American English, in American dictionaries, in American texts, there is no double L. But in English, we keep to this rule about the double consonant after the short vowel. So this brings us to the end of this Step 2 video on past continuous. Now you can move on to the Step 3 video in which you'll find some practice exercises.